Welcome to iPen Podcast, Interviews and Conversations. Here we bring entrepreneurs and their business to their audience and communities as well as ours. We welcome and connect with them to share who they are and what they do. Authors, entrepreneurs, we extend the invitation to promote your business here on our podcast and in iPen Magazine. Your article, your story, your promotions, how you can connect with others, a new audience, a quarterly magazine presented online for all to view and subscribe to. For articles, ads, and subscriptions, please contact ipendesigns@gmail.com. For your viewing, you can see past articles, past interviews on www.nanettembuchanan.com. Welcome to the show. Good evening, good evening, good evening. My name is Nanette Buchanan, and this is iPen Visions Podcast, Interviews and Conversations. And if you've been with us for a while, you know that we're not the typical podcast. We don't do things the typical way. So tonight won't be any different. We're not going to do anything right tonight either. So get used to what we do. No, for real. It's a relaxed atmosphere, and we like that atmosphere because it makes everyone feel a lot closer. You can network with someone that you can understand when they're not stiffly answering questions or they're not stiffly trying to make sure you don't see through whatever they're trying to put across to you. So we try to make sure that we keep everything honest here. And in order for me to be honest, I got to have a partner in crime. So I want to introduce to you my partner in crime and my friend, Felice. Good evening, sweetie.
Now I'm the honesty police, huh?
Yeah, the honesty police. You're keeping me honest. How are you?
I'm well.
Good.
I'm well. And
that's a blessing. And that's a blessing.
Honest answer too, is that I'm well. All is well, despite what it looks like, all is well.
All the time. All the time. Yep, and we just want you guys to know that this is not something that, it's not, the only thing that's scripted is that commercial that you just heard. Other than that, there's nothing that's scripted. Yeah. So we come up with whatever we come up with. We throw it to the wind, whatever it is. So tonight, we want to introduce to you our next guest. You remember last week, if you guys tuned in, and I hope you did, we had a dynamic time talking about Black history and how it relates to yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We went through some of the dynamics on Black history. So if you didn't see that, please go back to the YouTube channel and check that out, because it was a deep delve conversation. And we did have a special guest that was on with us to talk about Black history. But today we're going into something that does deal with history with our guest, author Mark Odom. And I'm going to let him come on and give us all the details and all the good things that he, went through and found out. But it does have to do with just what we were saying last week. Sometimes you need to delve in and find out, your history. You need to know it on a more personal level, not someone, well, I can't say that because some of us do have famous people in our families. So I can't say not the famous people or the people that are well noted, but you still need to know your family. And that's one of the things that we conquered last week when we talked about it. So I'm going to bring him to the stage. I want you all to welcome him. Mr. Mark Odom, please. How are you, sir? Thank you for coming.
Well.
Good evening.
Hello.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
We're good. Good. Well, as I told you and told the audience in the, not a presentation, the intro, we don't do things the normal way. So I will not be introducing you, sir. you will be introducing yourself.
Oh, there you go.
Who are you? Who is Mark Odom?
Okay, my name is Mark Odom. Well, that's not really my last name. I found out that my last name was actually Brundridge. Where it came from is from my biological father. But anyway, I succumbed to the name Odom because it was forced upon me. I'm an author of The Sum of Me. It's a book about my life story and finding out that I was a product of someone else. And someone else took the wings and said, okay, well, I'll raise this kid. I'll give this kid my last name and we'll go from there. But it took me years to find out that this is what took place. So I went through 40 plus years of not knowing my biological father, not ever being introduced to him, not knowing that side of the family at all.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna dig in and we're gonna jump right into it because this is something that has interested me because and interests Felice as well because we're all a part of that same type of dynamic that a lot of times we don't know who's who, regardless if they left during a marriage, regardless if they never were together, regardless if we got raised adoptive. We had Mr. Ganji on last week who found out he was adopted and he grew up in an adopted home and he had to go and search his family. So it not only touches African Americans, but it touches he was from what did he say? Anglo-Saxon? Was he Anglo-Saxon?
Yeah.
So it's not something that's just pure to one culture. It happens in various cultures. Some people, they wind up having the children and having the children taken away from them. So I think that all falls into the first thing that we want to talk about is the family dynamics. And you said that you were raised with someone who took you in and said, I'm just going to give you my last name. Now, was that your mother? Was that family?
Yes. Before that, my father that I call my father, he basically got into my life when I was 2 years old.
Okay.
My biological father was actually already married and he already had 2 children. But his wife, who I never met either, was willing to take me into their home without a problem. But my mother basically just vanished. She left Pittsburgh with me. She called her brother and said, hey, I got to get out of here. Whatever was said. I don't know. I'm a 2-year-old. I was only 9 months old, maybe 10 months old. She left. She vanished. She went to Virginia. She there met my biological, my father that I call father, who actually raised me. And they got married. Next thing you know, I'm being raised in Germany because my father was in the service. So from about 2 to 5 or 2 to 6, I was in Germany. During that time, my mother had another child who was actually my brother. And it was his child, the father that I thought was my father. It was his child. So we grew up together as kids. We never knew any different. I didn't find out any different until I was 13. I was raised by my grandmother. My mom shipped my brother and I in 1976. She shipped us off to Florida. So we left Florida. We left Virginia and we got shipped off on August 29th, 1976. We ended up in Florida. So we ended up in Florida. And by the time I was 13 years old, my grandmother was, she was a very lovely lady. I give her a lot of kudos in my book. Loved her to death. She was ornery. She was very, very mean. She was mean towards me. And I found out it was because of my color. I was a very light-skinned child. I had, I had red hair, believe it or not. I was a redhead kid. So it was like, okay, nobody in the family, they were all darker and they all had different features. Nobody was, my complexion. Nobody had hair like me. Nobody was like me at all. So she ended up basically just telling me the situation. Not telling me. She was mad when she told me. She said, your father only has one child. Josh only has one child. So that was like, what are you talking about? I don't understand what you're talking about. So one thing led to another, and that was the first time it was ever brought up.
So do you feel, or do you know that your biological father had no say in your upbringing, with your mother making the full decision to without his consent, or do you know that information?
I don't know full firsthand. I think there was some discussion because my sister, who I've met, she has often said, and my aunts have often said that they, there was a conversation about me still being in Pittsburgh, because that's where I was born. I was born in Pittsburgh. And there was a conversation about that, and everyone was willing to, take me or not, let me go anywhere with my mother. But, I think my mother had reign, and she took whatever, and she did whatever.
So what did that feel like for you when you were told by your grandmother, and especially in the setting in which you were told?
I was heartbroken. I basically broke down. I did not understand what was going on at all, because all through my years and going from European countries to, back to America and so forth and so on, I had always looked at him as my father. I never knew anything else. Baseball games, football games, basketball games, things of that nature, playing, all kinds of stuff, going to the dentist, and all kinds of things. I never knew anybody else. So when that did happen, and my grandmother did say that, I went to him and asked him, but he broke down as well. And he said, he promised my mother that he wouldn't say anything. And he kept his word. He didn't say anything, but he was honest, though. He was honest when he told me. It didn't make it any better.
Yeah, and the thing about that, that emotional and mental connection that a child has from the time that they're being raised, and especially, like you said, from a young age, from a tender age, those tender moments, those moments where you're learning the small things that we don't sometimes fall back on until we're older and recognize who taught you those little things, who helped you get across the street, or to tell you to look both ways, or just the smaller things that no one pays attention to but a child. You taught me how to tie my shoe. You taught me how to do this. That emotional and mental connection is so, so crucial at that time. Was there a did your grandmother and your mom get along, or
no,
was there?
I don't think they got along at all. When
she
was introduced to my grandmother, she was already pregnant, and my grandmother knew that. Knew that she was already pregnant, and that wasn't her son's child. She knew that, and that from that point on, I think there was, tension. All kinds of tension.
Right. So this is your paternal grandmother, then, or your father?
Stepfather's mother. Yeah, because like I said, I just always look at the dynamics that we have, and we have so many people that are searching, and so many people that are seeking to find. Like I said, the same thing. I didn't know, my stepfather raised me from the age of 2, and I just was adamant about the fact, and my mother would say it all the time, well, on all your paperwork in school, this is your father. On all your paper. And I would say, well, wait a minute, he's here. Why am I putting somebody else's name down for, mom's name, dad's name, and then you tell me, oh, well, that's not your dad now. That's not who you. To the point, I'll tell you how I first recognized that it was an emotional, mental trauma for me. I'm going for a job interview, and they give you the psychological test for law enforcement. They give you the psychological test. And on the psychological test, they ask you all of these questions about your mother and your father and your siblings and your this and your that. And I never was raised with my siblings, so I don't know anything about my father's two sons. I do know he had two sons, but he wasn't my biological. I mean, he wasn't my father. You know, I wasn't raised with him. So every question, about maybe the third or fourth question that I got to, I began putting step over the top of the word father. It bothered me, and I didn't recognize it. I just did it. Like when they would ask a question, I just put step over the top of it, and then I would answer the question. You know, it didn't faze me until the psychiatrist had me come in for the evaluation.
Wow. Wow.
And he asked, "Do you have something against your father?"
Whoa.
And I was like, no. He's a great man. He's this. And he's like, no, not the one that you're talking about on this paper here.
The other one.
Exactly. But I didn't know the man. I didn't know him. So there was nothing I couldn't say yay. I couldn't say nay. And I was taught in the home that this is the man that's raising you. My grandmother loved him to death. Everybody loved him to death. And he had been there since I was 2. So by the time I was able to ask questions or wanted to ask questions, my questions were always, why were you constantly telling me about this other man when he's never here? He's not here, you know? So that's the emotional and mental connection for me. I didn't recognize it until I was an adult, you know, that it had done something to me emotionally, because I sure wrote on the top of every one of those 100 questions that they asked.
Well, and that's right, Nanette, because even I too have a similar circumstance. My biological father is just a name to me. I mean, you know, well, my parents, I say my parents right now, but they got divorced maybe shortly after my birth. And then I was introduced to my stepfather, who is my father. I don't know another father. He was in the military as well. And his mother had a bias against my mother, because she's coming to my then father with 4 children, and none of them are his biologically. And then so there was that dynamic. And then we too were in the military. So we moved to Germany. We're there for several years, and we were never connected to our family. We were always the outsiders, always. On both sides of the family, right? Because even, for my mother and marrying a man in the military. And so there was all of this, and I label it now abandonment, in the sense that even my stepfather now, who I love to death, and again, I know no other father, he was, he went to Vietnam, so he was gone and he would come back, but he would come back. Whereas my biological father never came back. Right. So of course, in my state of being in the upheaval of life, and other people look at it as like, oh wow, you were fortunate enough to go and travel the world as you grew up. Yes, there is a fortunate side of that, but then there's another mental side of that, of just being, upheaved, just taken out of whatever. So I never found like a true comfort zone. But understanding that, like, I think just before I was 10 is when we moved to Germany, and we went back to the East Coast. We lived in California first, and then we went to the East Coast, and where my father is my biological is originally from, and he was supposed to come and see us, but that never materialized. And then also I vaguely can remember him promising me a bicycle. and of course that never materialized, right? Never did, right? And so then off we go to this foreign country, And so, you know, in that sense, you know, the only persons that I could connect to were my brothers and my mother and my father. So, so you know, it's just. So, what happened after that? How was your relationship?
For me, I was moving around up from Florida. I ended up going to Louisiana. And the only reason I went to Louisiana is because my brother begged me to come. I wasn't going to deal with my mother anymore because my mother didn't tell me, you know, she would not tell me. To this day, she has not told me. To this day, I don't have a proper birth certificate like everyone else has, and, you know, with footprints or anything like that. I don't have that. And I don't know my full last name, which is on your birth certificate.
Right.
You know, I don't know what it was because my name was changed. I believe it was totally changed. I don't have the documents for the adoption. My mother hasn't shared those with me or anything like that.
Yeah.
She just wants it to go away. She did not, you know, like this book that was written for me, that I wrote anyway. She didn't like the book at all. She basically chastised me before the book came out.
Yeah.
That I can't believe that you did this. Well, I can't believe you never told me the truth.
Right.
Now that I know, when I went through Ancestry and I got my first leaf for a cousin that is actually, I went to a family reunion in Ohio. My wife and I went to a family reunion, and she was like, "Yeah, I know your dad. I know, you know, and your aunt is my best friend, so forth and so on, even though we're related. But, you know, I'll tell you all about him or whatever." And I'm like, "Huh?" So she's a guru for Ancestry. She goes into Ancestry. She told me some things about my mother that I had no idea. My mother, my biological father, actually got married.
Oh.
And he was already married. He already had 2 children. Like I said, he was already married. He got married. But I think it was for the simple fact that he was in the military. My mother was pregnant. And, you know, as most people know, when you're married to a military man and you're having a child, there is no cost for that, or very little cost for that. So that was the thing for that. So it was about 2 months before I was born that took place. And she told me, she sent me the paperwork where, you know, where it was signed off by the judge or just to the peace or whoever, and the whole 9 yards. But those are stories that my mother just chooses not to say anything about. I don't.
And you know what I think? I think too that part of the dynamics of that, and it's really ironic that you said your book is the sum of me. I think Edward's book was the best gift, the best gift given.
Yeah,
I think his was the best gift given because of the simple fact that he felt that once he found out that he was adopted and why he was adopted, he always knew. His adoptive parents didn't hide it from him. So he always knew what it was, but he figured that the way that things went, that was the best thing, you know, the way that things panned out. And it's funny because I got here Buried Family Secrets, but I have a book called Family Secrets, Lies, and Alibis. And unlike your book, my book, I had to change the names of everyone. Because everyone in my husband's family played a part in covering the secrets.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everybody played a part. And the thing is that what I don't understand about the buried secrets are, other than maybe hurt, other than maybe, you know, feeling, you know, guilty or feeling
shame.
Or shame, right?
Shame, guilt,
or feeling guilty or something. But I could not grasp the fact that, like with my mother, you left him and you separated from him, but you still wanted him to be noted.
Yeah.
For some reason, you still wanted me. I carried his last name, no matter what paperwork I filled out, all the way up to college. It was always, don't you put down his name. You've got to put down your. Well, he's not here. Right. Why am I doing that? And it was just the opposite for my husband. The minute that his sister worked at the same job I worked at, and she came to work one day and said, "I think I'm related to your husband." We start digging up stuff. Found out that there was a funeral the next week, and it was her aunt. It's his aunt. You know. Well, wait a minute. That's not usual. But when we went back to talk to the family, he talked to cousins, he talked to aunts, and it was finally an uncle that he pinned in a corner and said, I need to know this information. And the uncle said, that was your dad's secret, and we all vowed to keep it. His dad was dead and gone.
Yeah.
I know.
So the thing is that when you get to that point, these buried secrets cause so much, emotional and unhealthy trauma, and when they said it, they said, well, you can't just let it go. Just let it go. Stop digging. Stop digging. Just let it go.
You
can't.
You can't just let it go.
You can't just let it go. And then they wanted to know, well, what does she want? Why is she bothering you?
She's like, I don't want anything.
She didn't want anything.
Just the truth. That's it. The truth. Just the truth.
And the question is, the real question is, for that though, I think the main thing that we are looking for is who we are.
Yeah.
Where do we come from?
Right.
Not only that, you think about, illnesses and things of that nature that they may have had.
Yes.
What kind of, did they live a healthy lifestyle?
Yeah.
Did they have, were they sickly?
Yeah.
Okay, if I'm a part of that gene, am I gonna succumb to something that they can't do?
Yeah.
What do I tell my doctor? What do I tell my doctor when he says, what is your family history?
Yeah. I've had that a lot growing up, right? Yeah.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And they don't think of it that way. They told him he was opening Pandora's box, and I just told him, I said, well, listen, the only thing I can think of is for me to change the names of the characters, change the situation, but give it the same dynamic. That's the only thing I can do, because I don't want people to say that, I pulled all of these, but I put in every dynamic that was there. And then I had to put in the possibilities, because this was a brother and a sister. And their question was, well, suppose I had met you.
Yes, I know.
I need to know who's who.
Who's who?
Yeah.
Right. So the thing is, like you said, the purpose and identity goes deeper for the child than it does for the parents, because the parents are already, they know who's who.
Yeah, you're of age and you've already gone through that. So now what do I do when I meet someone and you come tell me 2 years later, 3 years later, that, oh, that's your cousin. Oh, you can't do this. This is your half sister or so forth. So you can't. That's right. That just breaks me down again.
Yeah.
I've already been broken down once. How do you broke me down again?
And how do you move on from that?
Yeah.
You're hurt on both sides now. You're hurt from the parental side. You're hurt from the fact that you've been separated all of these years from a sibling. And then you're trying to reconnect on this end, and you do want your family to connect with them as well. So it was just turmoil after turmoil after turmoil. And all I did was just keep writing. I just kept writing. Just kept writing, because of the simple fact that was his and her release. That was their way to release. So my question is, did you feel, even though your mother said, don't you write that and don't you do that, did you feel relief when you finally got it out? Did you feel better about it?
It was like a large weight lifted off my shoulder. Because the reason for that is because I got to know it was 4 aunts, but one passed away, and my wife and I actually went to her funeral. So it's 3 aunts that I am in touch with on a regular basis. I have a sister that's out in San Diego, California, that we talk on a regular basis. We send gifts, we share gifts, we have phone calls and things of that nature. We have a lot in common. So it is a weight lifted off my shoulder, to know that she's there. And she is family, and we can talk to one another. We can actually talk to one another and grow. And I can ask the questions, because she grew up with our biological father, her and her brother, who's our brother, who passed away. 2 brothers have passed away. She's the only one left. So, I can ask questions. I get to call my aunt who lives in Pittsburgh, my 2 aunts, 3 aunts that live in Pittsburgh. I get to call them and ask. I get to send them cards. I get to, to go and visit when I have time. say, hey, how you doing? Whatever. Although they're up in their, 80s or whatever, I still get to see them and we still get to communicate. And they say that, I sound just like my father.
Oh, wow.
You sound just like your dad. I'm like, huh? But I never heard his voice.
You never heard it. Yeah, right.
Ever meet him?
I never got the chance to meet him. But he was a pastor, and later in his life he was a pastor, and he had some recordings. But they say you sound just like your dad.
Oh, wow.
You walk like your dad. You talk like your dad. You're like your dad.
His characteristics, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, was your mother upset with you because you did make the connection with them?
Yeah. She was. Yeah.
Wow.
She was really terrified. Very, very, very. She did not want that to happen at all. When the book came out, she was like, "That's not your name. You can't use that name." I'm like, "Well, what is my name?
Right.
What is my name? Give me my birth certificate." Funny story. When I went into the Navy, I had to get a birth certificate.
Yeah.
So I called. I got a birth certificate. I was here in Maryland. I got a birth certificate, whatever. But I noticed that it didn't have a father's name on it. It only had her name at the bottom and my name. Nothing else. That was it. And I was surprised. Everyone keeps telling me, I'm surprised that the military even took that.
Allowed it.
They didn't say go back and get the original, go back and get the the whole thing or anything like that. They took it as it was, and that was it.
Wow, that is
that is unusual.
It was totally unusual.
Yeah, okay, and unusual. So why did you never get the chance to meet your dad in person? Your biological.
He passed.
Okay.
He's passed. Yeah. Okay. He passed in 2011.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, 2011. And I didn't start looking on Ancestry until 22, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I think it was, like 2022, something like that. I'd always wanted to do it, but I just, I was afraid of the simple fact of being rejected. I'd already been rejected once.
Yes.
So I didn't want that, I didn't want to go through that again, the rejection. Well, what if they don't like me? What if they don't know who I am? What if they say, what do you want? Who are you? Why are you here? And I had seen enough stories on TV.
Right.
No, that's what could happen.
That could happen.
In the back of my mind, I was thinking, I don't really want to do this, not yet. I got up the courage, when I went to Ancestry, my wife pretty much made me say, do this.
Yeah.
To do it and see it, and sure enough.
And not only that, like you said, that load that comes off of your chest.
Oh yeah,
that relief. It's just it's not so much for anybody else. It's actually for your calm and for you to feel better. And my husband went through it. He went through it. He had to go through a whole lot of it, and it did affect him, sickly, to the point where they were like, well, we don't know what's wrong, but that's what it was. It was the stress and the you don't need to talk to them, and you need to do this, and one ear then out the other ear, and trying to balance the two to keep peace. You can't keep peace that way when you don't have peace. So congratulations to you that you were able to turn it into something that was better for you. It's not so much that it was better for your dad, because of course he missed the opportunity as well. But the thing about it is, it was, and sometimes we don't know what our parents are doing. We have no idea what their voice is saying in the back. Like, I hope you never get a chance to see him. And you sitting there going, yes, I'm waiting. And,
this is sad, because the reality is that, yes, that parent could reject you and say that. And in fact, it was a couple of days ago, I think, that I seen this clip on one of the socials. And it was a young lady. She approached a woman, and I think they were like in Target or something. And she asked the woman if this was her name. She gave the name, and the woman's like, yes. And she's like, how do you know me? And then she asked her, she said, did you live in, I don't know, San Francisco or something sometime? And she's like, yeah. And then so the young lady said, I'm your daughter. And then the woman like, she
broke.
She's like, no. And then she told her, she's like, you told the lady, you go and seek therapy to deal with this, but don't ever contact me again. That part, yes, I'm, that happened. I did birth you, but that's it. And she's like, and don't ever contact me again. It was just like, whoa.
Wow.
Whoa.
Whoa.
And then now I'm, of my two children, I was not married to either one of their fathers, and they, went their separate way. And I said, thank you for my children, and I have them. And my daughter did reach out to her biological father, and, he connected, but then, he
disconnected.
Yeah. Yes, that's it. And then she ended up meeting her half sister. They, share the same father. And so, and there's a different dynamic because the half sister grew up with her father for like 5 years or so. But I've never, and I'm not patting myself on the back, but I've never like stopped them from going to pursue that and have that. I've never, and in fact, I've heard you said like, if you need me to do something, I will do it, because I know for from firsthand whether or not that how that affects you. My son absolutely refuses. He's like, nope, don't want to know nothing, don't. And so, and again, I have to support that. I can't force that on him because first and foremost, I never did in the beginning. But again, as we're talking about this, I'm, getting like, oh, this is so important.
Yes,
it is.
Yes,
it's
and
important.
like he said, the thing about it is you don't want it to be a long lasting thing, because when you have your children, and then your children have something, and I'm not wishing this on anybody, have something wrong, and you have to check, like he said, the medical history, the line, in some cases, even blood transfusions. You may not be compatible to what they need. Or you may not, and that's so important, because you want to know all of that history. That's one of the major questions that the doctor asks.
Oh yeah, all the time.
They dig deep. They definitely dig deep.
So it's something that I don't understand. I just don't understand it. I mean, I understand in cases where there's been abuse, in cases where there's been trauma, when in cases where there's been that. But to tell someone, okay, this is your name. This is your name. That becomes a thing, especially in the military. Especially, you being in the military, if you needed to know your name, you needed to know
your name.
You need to know who you are and who you're connected to. You need to know your name. So to find out later on that you have that, do you have a chance now to rectify your paperwork?
Actually, I don't. Actually, my biological father and I, when I went into the Navy, he was stationed at the same base. I went to boot camp. I went to Navy, so we were on the same base at the same time. He was in the Navy.
Oh my God!
But our paths, I guarantee
never crossed.
Our paths probably crossed 100
you didn't know
times, 100 different ways, and I had no idea who he was, and he had no idea who I was.
Wow!
Only because of the name and the adoption itself.
Wow!
But other than that, they say we look the split image of each other.
Well,
I'm like, okay, this is different.
Yes, definitely different. Yeah,
I went to visit my sister in California, who lives in San Diego, and she took me to that base. And it's not a base anymore. They've closed it down, and it's actually just a place you can walk through, and it's a park, and they have some goods and services there, but it's not a military installation anymore for that. But
oh my goodness.
She showed me where his office was, and I showed her where I did boot camp.
Wow.
Where I did basic training right there.
Oh my
Every morning, and it's literally
and you right there where he is.
It's right across the street.
Oh,
right across the street at that time.
That's the thing that I think has attracted me to the type of books that I write, the fiction books, because we sometimes have to see what goes on with other people in order to get some knowledge for ourselves, number one, and then peace of mind. Someone reading your book would automatically say, well, wait a minute, if that could happen to him, could that possibly be my story?
Yeah, could that actually be me?
Yeah.
Is that part of me?
Could that actually be what went on? Is that why there's a distance? Right. Is there a distance that's created? And could that possibly have been me? Because I could remember people constantly walking up to me saying, well, that story right there, and then elders, older people that you think would understand it were saying, oh, those are secrets you go to your grave with. You don't tell.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh? Why would you not say something? Yeah. And they were like, oh no, those are secrets that you just don't tell those secrets. You let it go. Let it go. And I'm like, you're not understanding how it fulfills the person.
Right.
Yes.
But and I think we have to give credit to how we even came to this country and how that has been perpetuated, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's the seed that was planted,
Yeah, you don't tell, and you might be separated. And not only that, the good point about that is, just like he was saying about being separated and not knowing he was separated.
Right.
No one has said to you that you're separated. No one has told you that. But that's what history did. It said you could be separated from your family and it doesn't matter. It has no value to you.
Right.
It doesn't really matter that you're separated. You don't have to be with your dad. You don't have to be with your mom. You could be with anybody and just you'll be okay. And that's not okay. It's
not at all.
It's not okay.
Because you have so many questions in the end. You're always going to have questions every day. Every night you're going to have questions.
Who did you go to with your questions?
No one's. I know, but there's no one to go to. Is what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying.
No one's going to answer you about the questions.
Like you said, you loved your grandmother and everything, but you couldn't ask her those kind of questions.
No, not at all. Yeah, not at all. That wasn't gonna come up. I mean, once she got out the, you're a bastard, that kind of thing. Once she got that out, it was like, okay, well. You don't really
I can't talk to you anymore.
Right.
You can't talk to her and not about this right here, because in her mind, she figured that your mother should have told you, you all should have had this conversation. You should already know this or anything like that. But the other thing about that, though, is it never separated my brother and I. Good. My brother and I to this day are still very close. We're still very tight. He lives in North Carolina. We talk on a regular basis. We're not, we're not strangers to each other. Right. Even though he knows that I have another side of the family.
How far are you guys in age? Are you
2 years? We're 2 years apart. Yeah, we're 2 years. My sister, who lives in California, her and I are 4 years apart. She saw me when I was 9 months old. She was 4 years old.
Wow.
Ready to turn 5. She saw me. She said my mother was pushing me in my baby stroller, carriage, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, and she said she saw me.
Wow.
So she remembered that time, when she saw me.
Oh, okay.
At 4 years old, she remembered.
So you were in the neighborhood where the distance wasn't really the excuse.
Nope, not at all.
Wow.
They were right around the corner. Actually, we went to her and I went to Pittsburgh. I picked her up when she came from San Diego. She landed in Pittsburgh. So I said, all right, I'll come pick you up. Drove from Maryland. I go pick her up. So we stayed at our cousin's house for a couple of days. But she actually gave me the tour of where they lived and where we lived.
Wow.
The houses are less than 200 yards apart.
Really?
They're less than 200 yards apart.
Wow.
And both houses are still standing to this day. One is a little older than the other one, but our grandparents lived on that side of town. So that's her mom and dad or whatever, lived on that side of town. And you could see my biological father's house from where our house was, where her house was, or where
my goodness. Oh my goodness.
So when they say keep it all in the family, it's definitely keep it all in the family.
Yeah. And you know what? I always get that like I said, with my father, it was a thing of my mother just didn't want him around. You know, that's what came out later, that because I distanced myself immediately, because I was like, you knew I was here all of this time and you never even tried. So I automatically thought it was him. And it wasn't until I was an adult and I said it to him. He didn't say anything back. He just said, okay, I'll talk to your mother. And I said, that's what you need to do. You need to talk to her, because, you know, I'm grown now. You know, I'm not looking for a daddy. That's not what I'm looking for. And my grandmother told me, she said, no, that was your mother's.
Yeah.
Your mother did not want him to be around.
Different. Very, very different.
So it's the dynamics that come into it that, like you said, give us purpose and identity. Because here I am wearing the identity and not understanding the backstory.
Yes.
You know, the backstory is what, you know, what's going on. And none of us as children understand the backstory.
Nope. We don't get it at all. We
don't know what's going on. We have no idea. I remember a young man saying to me, he said, I would buy your book, but I think that my therapist would be against it. And I said, huh? But him, he like you, his father was a bus mechanic. He was a bus driver.
Oh wow.
Oh,
the department that fixed the buses was on one side. The part where he would go pick his bus up and drive was on the other side.
Oh, my goodness.
And of course, he had got the job later on, being a younger man, and his father, being older, had moved into the different departments.
Wow.
They went, people were telling him all along that he looked like this guy that was, you know, an older guy on the other side of the, you know, and he was like, yeah, okay.
Right.
He said, I never went on the side. He said, it never interested me enough. My mother never said anything about it, so I never thought about it. And the man passed away.
Oh.
And at the funeral, people from the job are going to pay their respects. And he decides to go with the job.
Wow.
He's going to go pay his respect.
Wow.
And right before, he said, I'll never forget it. He said 3 pews before the coffin, a lady stuck her hand out and told me, sit down right here. And it was his father's sister. And she said, baby, you can't go up there yet. And she started talking to him.
Wow. Wow.
And that's where he found out. He said, he said, I just can't. He said, I'm in therapy and everything, and I can't write a book.
Wow.
I told him, I said, well, I understand. But it's just the dynamic. It's so deep, you know, it's so deep rooted. And
it's so personal too. It's personal.
Yeah, very personal.
It's so personal. So you can't tell one person how to feel about this situation.
No, you can't. And even in anger, even if they're mad about it, you can't tell them not to be mad.
Yeah.
You can't tell them not to be upset.
You can't tell anybody how to feel. Not about this anyway.
Exactly.
No. And you can't even rationalize with them and say, oh, but it was, or oh, it should have been. You can't even rationalize with them. There's nothing that's going to make them feel any better. Nothing. Because all I kept saying to him was, well, baby, did you ever get a chance to go up to the car? He said, after talking to her, I just got up and went back out the door.
Yeah.
Wow.
He said, I couldn't. He said, I couldn't. And he said, for months, people were telling him, you got to go meet Mr. So-and-so. And he said, that's what was killing him.
Yeah.
That's the part that was getting him.
Yeah.
That for months, people were telling him that. And he never went on the other. He said, I had no reason to go on the other side. So I just never went on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
But you never know. You never know.
No.
But he was in therapy, though. He was in therapy. He said he said after that he broke, and the job told him that they would, you know, stick by him and support him and everything. But he had to go to therapy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's tough. That is so tough.
And I think
that's definitely tough.
Yeah.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
It's you know, what do you do as the child? You have no jurisdiction. You have no, you know, what do you do? What do you do other than try to find out? You know,
Yeah.
what do you do? You know, and like you said, it's me. I'm trying to find out who me is.
Yes, I want to find me. I need to find out, I needed to find out who I was. I know I had become totally different, and I was just losing it. I needed to find out who I was, where I came from.
Right.
How old were you? I mean, not how old were you when you wrote the book, but how old were you when you started the looking into it, saying, I got to look into it? Were you the 13-year-old boy that was told by your grandmother?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't that. I was disappointed then at 13. I was very disappointed, but I still lived I'm going to say normal childhood for all that could be. I mean, I kind of still lived a normal childhood, but from moving from this place to that place, state to state, it wasn't until really after I went into the military that I really knew that I really wanted to find out who I was. But I never I never jumped off the cliff. I would jump off everything else, but I would never jump off that cliff.
Right.
Who was who and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
Because I knew I couldn't go to my mother. I knew I just could not.
Yeah.
She was just, too ornery, and she was not going to tell me anything about that. So it wasn't until I was 45, 48, something like that, when I really started writing. And said, okay, well, this needs to come out of me. I need to get this out of me. I need to put this on paper. So I wrote ledgers and ledgers and ledgers upon ledgers. And then, when I was 56, 57, well, the book came out last year.
Okay.
So, I'm getting ready to turn 60 in July. So once the book was out or whatever, then that's when the release came out.
Look at the years.
Yeah.
Look at the years from 13 all the way through the years, and no one is saying anything to try to ease some of that mental stirring, because that's got to be emotional and mental stirring that's going on that whole time.
Oh yeah, from 13 to 57.
Yeah,
basically 13 to 57.
Yeah, you talking
when I really started,
saying,
okay, this needs to get out. This needs to be on paper. Somebody needs to read this. I need to get this release off of me. I need to get this cloud from over me. It wasn't really a cloud. It was just a weight.
Yeah.
It was dragging me down. It was dragging me, because it wasn't a day that went by that I didn't think about it. Because there's so much more I could have written in the book, of how I was treated, mistreated, how I was just stepped on, stepped aside, or whatever. Just, don't worry about it. No one was answering questions or anything like that. It wasn't until, I got to be 57 years old and said, okay, enough is enough. I'm done. I need to clear me and cleanse myself.
Yeah.
This is what became of it. The book became of it. So I said, okay, this is enough. I got to share this with somebody.
Yeah. And I think that's the whole thing too. The people on the opposite side are so scared of you sharing their
truth.
Their issue, they don't want their part to come out. I had over a good 100 people at the first book signing, most of them his family and everything. And I had to tell them that, listen, the names have been changed, so you can't do anything with this. And the people are nowhere near in the same, situations or anything like that. I just used the premise of the story to get the story out. But the thing about it is, it was so many questions, so many things that come about in in the mind.
Yeah.
You got questions. I'm quite sure your sister had questions. Your brother had questions. Everybody's got questions as to, well, why? Why is this not something that's just a conversation, especially after you're grown?
No, I mean, once you reach a certain age, and you really want to cleanse your soul, you want to get right with yourself, it's time to tell the truth. We as African Americans, male and female, we don't like to, dwell in things that actually have happened and things that could be better for our younger generations, because that's not something that I want to, take to my children. Or anything, I don't want to hold that from them. They're both listed in the book. Their names are in the book and everything like that. But I didn't want to hold anything back from them. I hadn't told them, about the whole thing. They had never met their grandfather, who passed away as well. Neither one of them. And they don't see my mother as they don't really call her grandma either, because they didn't see her a lot.
Right.
They weren't around her a lot, so they don't really, they don't really see her as that, as a grandparent.
Yeah.
But there's a release that you have to have. You have to say, okay, enough is enough. I need to tell somebody this.
Right.
They need to, listen if they want to. Call me whatever you want to call me, but the truth is the truth. I didn't change any names. I kept all the names the same. I didn't want to bury any secrets at all. I wanted it to be known because, like I said, healthcare is a thing that
number one.
We as African men, we don't use healthcare the way we should use healthcare.
Right.
And that's on the mental side too. Whether it be mental or physical, we don't go to the doctor. We would rather hold it in, keep it to ourselves, and die with it than go to someone else and talk about it.
Yeah. And not know whether or not you've passed it on.
Yes.
Because you didn't go to the doctor, because you didn't look at it. And like you said, you don't know what the mental pressures are or the mental strain is. Like I said, with my husband, he had a stroke. And when he had the stroke, the doctor told him, she said, I have tested you for everything possible. This is a deep-seated trauma.
Yeah.
Somewhere in your life, you've had deep-seated trauma, and it built up so much. She said, you exploded. Yeah. She said, and you need to get that, you need whatever it is. She said, I can't tell you. Maybe you need to go to therapy. Maybe you need to go talk to someone. And he's a very quiet guy. So he's not going to go talk to a stranger, or say anything. But as that dynamic started rolling around, people were asking him, well, why would you want to act like you had a stroke? Act like?
What?
Act like? I'm going back and forth to 10 doctors a week trying to figure out what's going on. And you're telling me I act. And then that's when we started adding it up. Hey, this is what came up. This is what you've questioned them about. This is what to the point, not answering the phone, don't want to talk to you, don't want to find out. Well, wait a minute, something's not right. And like you said, it fell into his physical. It fell into a physical thing. And it was right after that, he was fine. Right after that, right after it was unveiled and everything else, it was like a weight was lifted. Yeah. So between that and that book, because I told him, I said, well, I can write the book, but I'm not going, I just don't feel comfortable putting names in the book. I don't, he said, I don't care. It sounds impossible. He said, it just sounds, he said, I'm 50 something years old and this woman is walking up to me telling me that she thinks she's my sister. Yeah. Wow. This is not something that should be. And he's oldest.
And then you'll forever have questions if they're not answered.
Yeah, for sure.
It will keep you, it will keep you in suspense and keep you in a bad way. Your body will never be the same. Your mind won't be the same.
Your mind, yes.
Mentally, you won't be the same. You need a release. You need to know. Someone needs to know.
And then the disconnect of the emotions that a parent child has. Or if it's not smoothed over with the whys, the how comes, the what happened, the what ifs, and everything else, that it's rigid. It's constantly up and down, trying to figure out, well, did he love me? Did he walk away because of me? Did he do this because he didn't want to be with my mom? Didn't want to do this? Didn't want to do that? Well, what's going on? You're constantly trying to figure out what it is, and you don't know why, and that plays on the emotions as well.
Yeah,
that just plays on the emotions. It's a connection that's needed. You need that emotional, you need that emotional and that physical connection. Well, let me ask you this. You went from doing this personal challenge. You had this personal challenge. And you said you had ledgers and you had journals and different things that you wrote as you were going along. How bad was it when you just decided to put it into a book?
That was the difficult part was, okay, how much I have all of this written. I have journals and ledgers and all kinds of stuff. How much of this do I actually put in the book? What don't I tell? What things don't I tell about my mother, about my father, about my brother, or anyone else? What don't I tell? How do I make this into a memoir that's basically about me and my struggle? That was the thing that I wanted to do. I was like, I wanted to make this more personal about me and my journey of how I got over it. How I got over it was basically just saying, okay, I'm going to write this in the book. I'm going to leave this out. I'm going to write this. I'm going to leave this out. I'm going to write this. Oh yeah, I'm going to write this too. So that was one of those things you had to do when you write a memoir. I guess you all are familiar of what you want to put in it, because I couldn't tell everything. I mean, the book would have been 500 pages if I'd have told everything.
Right.
And you know what? I'm glad you said that, because I always tell Felice my first book was 700 and some odd pages. And I looked at it and said, there's no way in the world anyone is going to read this book. I am not. My very first, I did poetry and children books. So I had no idea. I looked it up and I said, oh, wow, you're not supposed to have over this amount of words, because then it's not a novel, it's a dictionary.
Right.
You know, you're not supposed to have this amount of words. Now what do I do? So I had to split it up into book 1 and book 2. But the thing is, when you're traveling through, and I was going by what they were saying, it wasn't my experience. It was, hey, I just remembered how I felt when such and such and such and such and such. And that's just like this. And how did he feel? And how did she feel? So I was taking their feelings and just putting it down. You were putting down your feelings. You know what I mean? So when you go to transform that to translate into something you want someone to read, you don't want to be offensive. You don't want to be, you know, make it look like you're crazy. You know, you don't want to make it look like you're trying to jug at somebody. You really want people to understand what's going on. You know, so that was why I posed that question to you, because that journey is an entirely different journey when you think about trying to, you know, hey, what do I do? How do I write this where people will
what
read
do
it?
I say here?
What do I say?
How do I end this, and how do I begin this? Where a lot of questions is like,
not
okay,
only
do
that,
you tell this story? Do you tell that story? Is it too much of this?
Yes.
Not enough of this.
Yes. Now, how did you know how to end your chapters?
Well, ending them was one of those things that wasn't easy, but it wasn't hard either. It wasn't hard. It was just the end of maybe just one story. And that's why I said, okay, well, I can end this on this story and on to a brighter note. I didn't want to, you know, I just took the time and said, okay, I wanted to help others. How do I get others that I can get involved in the same process that may not know or anything, or want to learn about this situation? How do you get started? What did you do to find out the information? So
Yeah. And I think that's a part of your healing too. That's a part of your healing, is to know that you've given someone a tool. You know, even though you told your story, you gave them a tool to help them overcome the same hill that you had to climb up, and the same, you know, finally get at the top of the hill, only to find out that there's another hill waiting for you.
There's another hill, another valley.
Yeah. So I understand that, trying to make it a tool, because that was my intention. It was like, well, this needs to be told, because there are people that are going through this, and they keep it a secret. When that little lady came up to the table and said, oh, you know, you go to your grave with those kind of secrets, I was like, what?
I mean, that's something that we've always done as African Americans, though. We've always taken it to the grave. It's like, okay, well, that's not helping anyone. That's only hurting someone. That's hurting someone. That's not helping anybody.
And that's on both sides, because now you're showing the next mother how a child would feel.
Yes.
You know, you're showing the next father how a child would feel. And then you're showing the child how to resolve this feeling. So you got lessons all in between the pages. And that's something that a lot of times people don't want to look at as a lesson. They look at it as, oh no, you're telling on me.
You're telling on me.
You're telling on me. You told what I did.
But it still gets down to validation, or lack of, because even for the parents, whatever the situation was, in that they were directed, I'm not going to say forced, but directed to make this decision that they made and to keep it to themselves, is because I feel that they, whatever the feeling or the situation we're in, it lacked validation for them, right?
Yeah.
So because I'm not validated, then you should, that's been passed down to them. You should not, as the child of this, there's no validation for you because there was none for me, right? And for whatever reason, because either, again, society, culturally, that was put upon us, but it takes, God gives us, He gives you the seed of the generational curse break, right?
Right.
So it wasn't given to your parents. It wasn't given. It was given to you to break that. And we're all given some form of that. I firmly believe, some seed of generational curse breaking, because we have just been brought through all of the curses that are upon us. And so it hurts my heart. It really does. And I see this on so many layers. I see it from my perspective, from my parents' perspective as best I can, and then also on my children, right? That we when it comes down to it, and as you have titled your book, The Sum of Me, it is about validating. It's about validating who you are, and where you come from.
Yes.
And it needs validating. It needs it, right? You need to be validated that, yes, I am biologically someone else's son. And that gave me my DNA and the seed of my identity. And so, and so I do commend you for doing that. But then tell me, what is the sum of Mark Odom now that you've written this book? And so what is the sum?
What's the sum? The sum is actually knowing exactly where I came from, who I actually belong to, the knowledge of having, another side of a family that I never knew, that was basically taken away from me. I feel like, once again, we were stripped as African Americans from our homeland. So I feel like that was stripped from me too.
Yes.
From the product that I came from was stripped away from me. I never got to know that. We never got to know that in Africa at all either. Right. So we don't know, we don't know the language, we don't know the people, we don't know the customs or anything like that. Well, I didn't get to know the customs in Pittsburgh. I didn't get to know my sister. I didn't get to know my brother. I didn't get to know any of them at all. So the sum of me for now is, I know who I am. I know where I want to go, what I want to do, and who I want to do it with. And it's not one of those things that I want to keep secrets.
Right.
I don't ever want people to, I don't want, even the people that I'm, want to help, I don't want you to wonder who you are. I want you to know who you are, who you belong to, and where you came from.
Yeah.
It's important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times, even when you ask the children, I go and talk to a lot of children groups, and you ask the children, do you know your background? And they automatically go right to their house, right to their address, and that's it.
Yeah,
to them, that's the background. They don't realize that. Well, did you realize that your parents moved from here to here?
Yeah,
and they didn't grow up here. They they moved to here, and then their mother moved from there to there. Did you know that your family moved along?
True.
These different places, and half of them have no idea. They grew up where they are. They stayed where they are, and if they moved, that was something different. But as far as them knowing how many generations go back or anything like that. They don't connect to those things.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have tons and tons and tons of external family. You know, those ones we call cousin, and those ones we call auntie, and those ones, and then you find out later on that they're not your aunt and they're not your cousins.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Like, what do you mean that's not my aunt? You know,
like, where did you come from?
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, so we have those family dynamics that we talked about earlier that automatically, you know, make us different as far as growing up and as far as being nurtured. You know, we don't get that. We don't get that, especially for men. Especially for men. I think that it's really, really, and the same thing with my son. Me and my first husband broke up, and my son has known his stepfather now, you know, since he was a younger boy. And he tells everybody when somebody says to him, well, your father's name is Buchanan and your name is Brown, and he goes, that's because that's my father. You know, he doesn't even, he has no qualms with saying, you know, listen, I know who he is. I know who my real father is, but I have no connection with him.
Yeah.
So it's hard for him to see, you know, that connection. But what else is lost?
Yeah.
What else is lost in that? Like you said, you have your father's voice. You have your father's stature. You have your father. You know, there's so, you know, when you look at what else is lost other than the connection? There's a connection there.
Yeah, definitely. My father he was in the Navy. My father scuba dived. I scuba dived.
Wow.
I had no idea that he scuba dived.
Yeah.
My sister told me that our dad scuba dived. He swam on a regular basis. I swim on a regular basis. I love the water. Me and the water are the best friends. But I had no idea. So
no idea.
Things that are lost, those are things that are lost. I mean, you know, we like the same music. He likes jazz. I love jazz. I play jazz on the saxophone. So it's like one of those things. It's like, okay, well, where did I get this from?
Yeah.
Because I didn't get this from my mother. Because she doesn't play any instrument at all. Yeah. She doesn't listen to music like that.
Yeah.
I listen to music. I buy albums. I go to places and buy albums.
Buy
jazz, you know, continuously. I go to jazz shows continuously. You know, so it's like, okay, I missed that part of me.
Right. And that's what I was saying. There's
lost it.
Lost in it. And not only that, you also lose out on the knowledge, you know, the conversations, the you know, the wit, you know, that's passed on from his experience, especially you being in the same field. You know, you both being in the military, you both liking to swim, you both liking music. All of that could have been nurtured.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to think about that as part of your dynamics and the emotional and mental connection that you know, that was there. You know, that was something that was passed on in your genes. You know, who knows? Who knows? Yeah.
And that's what I think that is. That's just in the genes. And you don't even know where it came from. You don't even know how you want to do it. When kids do stuff like that, it's like, why are you doing this? I don't know. I just like it.
I just like it.
Where did I get it from? I don't know. You just got it. You just like to do it.
Yeah.
Well, anybody that when you've had a couple of people that have been watching and commenting and saying this is so therapeutic, and they appreciate the fact that you've done what you've done. You've conquered, you know, what many want to conquer and don't know how to go about it. So I'm just going to let them know that you can get in touch with him on Facebook. You can reach out to him on Facebook. He also has a Gmail address for those of you that want to send him a letter. If you want to ask questions, I'm quite sure he would love. I'm telling you that he would love it. I don't care if he doesn't love it at all, because he needs you to know that this is a therapeutic thing. It's not a thing. It's not only a great book. It's not only a fantastic read. It's an enlightening read. It's an eye-opening read. It's to let you absorb what someone else went through, and then possibly walk your own path Sometimes we need to follow the footsteps of others.
Yeah.
So if we're following the footsteps of others, by all means, follow the footsteps of him. Look at this video again and again and again. If not looking at this video, you can go and go to Amazon and purchase the book. It's right there.
All you got to
do, put in the name. As I said, put in his name, put in the sum of me, and it's right there. It's right there. All the information is right there. So you don't have to worry about why didn't I figure this out? Why didn't I look into this? Well, he's telling you the things that you need to look into. He's telling you that these are the things that you need to embrace, because as a man or as a woman, we have the same problem. But as a man, you may need that for you to be rooted. For you to get your roots together. So
okay, so quick question for you. So your second email said Bishop. What's that about? Bishop 640?
Oh,
she's asking you about your email.
Oh, Bishop 640 at hotmail.com.
Yeah.
It's my Bishop account.
So why Bishop 640?
Yeah, it's Bishop 640 at hotmail.com.
Why the word Bishop? Is that a title?
That's the easiest way to get in touch with me anyway.
Is Bishop a part of your title?
Excuse me?
Is Bishop a part of your title?
No.
Just wonder.
I'm not a bishop. Bishop is a chess. Bishop is chess.
Oh, chess playing.
Okay,
chess.
It's a chess thing.
Oh,
you're the second person who've asked me that. Well, you're probably the 700th person who've asked me that. Are you a bishop? No, I'm not a bishop. On the chessboard, I'm a bishop. Yes.
Yeah. So Oh, very good. I love that. But so there wasn't. Yeah, I was just asking why bishop, and so to not assume that you are, but because most times if you are, most people lead with that. So, but I love that, Bishop, for the chess piece. Okay.
And not only that, in a correlation to life, life is like a chess game.
Yeah, it's a chess game. It's definitely a chess game.
And what is your role on that chessboard? And
your role on that chessboard is to be a bishop. He's coming from another angle, a whole different angle.
Yes.
So Felice has a question for you. Just like we open up differently, we also close differently. She has a question for you. Felice, go ahead and let's see what he's going to tell us.
Okay. So first of all, let me start with thanking you for sharing your time and your story with us. I'm, again, inspired and feel a calling to take seriously where my lineage lies. But my question is, and I think, that your cup was empty in the realization of you were not adopted, but you were misplaced from your biological, and you filled your cup by writing this book. But generally, besides that, how do you fill your cup? When your cup needs filling, what do you do?
I listen to music. Play music. Actually just take time to relax. Take a drive. Go see something different. I love to travel, so it's, we want to see something different in the world. How other people are living, what situations are they involved in, what can you do to help? I think that's, where I am a lot of times anyway. I'm just looking to help somebody.
Yeah. And do you know that it probably does stem from the situation to the extent that you want to do that? And so maybe that's one of the benefits of all of this happening is that, it molds you in a way and makes you see things a little maybe differently, but there's it's always a seed planting. So again, I thank you for your strength.
Yes. Infallible strength, because if you've been doing that, I can't imagine.
Yes, I definitely see the world different now.
Holding that ball, holding that ball for 40 something years, trying to figure out who's who. That's a big thing. Yeah. But now someone just told a secret on you. Miss Tillis just said that he's a worldwide traveler. So he's not talking about just going to a beach and getting in the water. He's actually traveling where he can really relax and travel. So we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. And he is available for book chats. He is available for, book clubs, to call him in, groups that are looking to help youth get through what they have to get through. Make sure you reach out to him, reach out to us. But the thing about it is, that's what we're doing here. We're trying to network and make it where the authors that come on, the leaders that come on, the business owners that come on can become a connection and help others. So, Mr. Odom, we really, really, really appreciate you spending the time with us. We want to thank you for your telling us what the sum of you is. And we're glad that you totaled out good. You might have had a couple of minuses and divisions and everything else, but you multiplied and came out with a plus all the way around. So your sum is good. Your sum is good.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you. And we want to tell everybody else, thank you for joining in. Thank you for joining in and listening, and hopefully, share the link, share it with a friend, and make sure other people listen, because again, this has been therapeutic, and we want to make sure that everybody gets a peace of mind, and that's what we're looking for. So thank you. Have a good evening, everybody. Just stand by a minute. Everybody have a good evening. Talk to you later.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all. Thank you for having me.